It appears that convicted criminal Dinesh D'Souza is not a fan of the police. Oh, well, that's very interesting. The Capitol Police. Let's just be very clear about the kind of police that he's talking about. In fact, recently, the conservative intellectual went on Laura Ingram's program to talk about how the police were doing brutality against the Capitol rioters. Take a look.
That if you follow January 6th at the granular level with the facts that are coming out slowly, they're coming out because the government has been very reluctant to release footage, particularly footage of what happened in the tunnel on January 6th, where you now begin to see these cops using massive amounts of force against unarmed Trump supporters, including women. The death of Roseanne Boyland is now being called into question. Was she the second Trump supporter that was killed by the authorities? Now, I think as all this empirical, irrefutable, on-video evidence is coming out, there's a kind of a necessity on the part of the left to conduct a big public dance which distracts attention from the facts and tries to sort of reinforce the original narrative. Oh, it was an insurrection. Yes, no one's been charged with insurrection, but somehow it was an insurrection without insurrectionists.
There is literally hours and hours of footage. Oh, they don't want footage getting out. Really? Again, literally hours and hours of footage of what happened that day. And by the way, notice the fun little use of idpol, right? I can't believe they would attack women, unarmed women. First of all, they were not unarmed. And second of all, wait, now, hold on here. Police, you all remember the case of Breonna Taylor, for example, sleeping in her bed, shot to death by police in a no-knock raid. Dinesh D'Souza, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's video out there of Dinesh D'Souza saying, wow, that was such a horrible thing that they were using such brutality against this young woman who was just asleep in her own house, in her own apartment. Maybe that video exists out there, but as far as I know, nope, not at all. Very, very strange here, very strange. But I love the whole shtick from some of these people that now, because we're alleging police brutality against Trump supporters, now we care about police brutality. Really? Because, I cared about police brutality long before then. And so, again, we also see what has happened. The mob on January 6th was attacking police officers. They were. One was dragged down the stairs, beaten with an American flagpole. Over 140 officers total were injured on the job. One was killed. And 5 people, by the way, in total during these riots died shortly during the riot or shortly afterwards. Now, in conservative circles, attacking police or even gesturing menacingly towards the police or reaching for the waistband, right? That's enough to get a black person shot to death. Hell, walking away from a police officer or running away from a police officer, either one gets you shot in the back. And conservatives are like, yes, correct. That is the right thing to do. He had it coming. He shouldn't have, he shouldn't have attacked the police. But wait, when insurrectionists, and yes, I am using that word because they were there for an insurrection. Oh, but nobody was arrested for insurrection. First of all, ongoing investigation. They're still making charges against people. And not only that, but they've been incredibly light-handed in doling out punishments and charges and prison time for people connected or that were part of January 6th. Okay? And so, an insurrection without insurrectionists. No, it was an insurrection attempt. And just because it failed does not make it any less of an insurrection. But as I said, if you're a right-winger and you attack the police, you get a slap on the wrist. Now, that said, I don't want anybody killed by police. That includes right-wingers, that includes unarmed black people, generally, right? Now, Dinesh D'Souza, however, well, I think he thinks a little bit differently. In fact, Dinesh D'Souza despises Black Lives Matter and despised the peaceful protests that happened in the wake of the death of George Floyd. So, he's generally pro-police and pro-police brutality towards black people. In fact, on July of 2020, here's what he said for a video on PragerU.
Hi, I'm Dinesh D'Souza. My message to police officers is that I value you, Americans value you, and please know that you have my support. I'm proud to take part in PragerU's Back the Blue campaign.
Back the Blue, defend the police. Unless, of course, I mean, you're so valuable, but unless you're protecting the Capitol against right-wingers. Now, the issue that I'm pointing out here is the gross double standard by people like Dinesh D'Souza. Again, I don't want the police abusing anybody. I even spoke out, by the way, against some of the Capitol rioters being kept in solitary confinement. Solitary confinement, by international law, is considered to be torture. I don't want anybody being treated like that. I don't want anybody being, abused by police officers, right or left. It doesn't matter. This is an issue not of politics, but an issue of civil rights. But what I really hate is when people are very selective on who this applies to. And that is Dinesh D'Souza, okay? So that said, you can't sit there and watch the hours and hours of video that has come out about January 6th that covered these riots and argue that no, it was the police that was doing the brutality in this case. Now, have police done brutality against protesters? You goddamn right they have. You goddamn right they have. And you know what? I've covered that on the show before. But you know what was different about this? The ones where police used overwhelming force had to be against people who were protesting oil pipelines or protesting the shooting and the shooting deaths of unarmed black people, or anything, of course, that challenges capital or capitalism. And so, and by the way, a good example of that is Occupy Wall Street. Peaceful protests that, guess what? What happened to Occupy Wall Street? Forced out by the police. And this is while right-wingers, people like Dinesh D'Souza, were looking at the crowds that were protesting against the banks, against large corporations, that were not paying fair wages, that were against the working class, the working people, the American people getting bailed out by the government. You know what they did? They decided to dump job applications to McDonald's on their heads. That's what they did. Oh, you lazy bums. Why don't you just go out and get a job? That's what you need. You get a job. You lazy bums. Get out of the park. Yeah, police, go get them. Go get them, cops. Bash your heads. Well, that's exactly what they said. And it's exactly what happened. Remember the water protectors in Standing Rock? They brought everything to bear. Water cannons in the freezing cold temperatures they used against the water protectors in Standing Rock. Indigenous protests, oil pipelines, anywhere that there's capital or wealthy interests, you had police there cracking people's heads. But when it comes to right-wingers, oh no. Generally, they got the kids' gloves on when you're dealing with the right-wingers, okay? But again, you look on the right, during those times when police were cracking the heads of peaceful protesters, water protectors, anybody on the right, were they standing up for them? Were they standing up for any of the protesters? Standing up for clean water? No, of course not. They supported the police wholeheartedly, because again, they're on the side of the rich, the powerful. So now, You compare that to January 6th, and you can see the difference. This time, cops were dealing with conservatives, with Trump supporters, and they hesitated. They were told, they were ordered, hold back, hold back. Don't engage. Don't, be very, very light with them. Kids' gloves, kids' gloves. Now, this is not me saying this. This is the police saying this. This is according to a 104-page report by Michael Bolton, the Inspector General of the Capitol Police. He put out a report. And the document that said that an intelligence assessment from the Capitol Police had warned 3 days before the Capitol rioters, before the Capitol riot, that these rioters, that Trump supporters, could turn violent in their efforts to overturn the election results and target Congress, which is exactly what happened. They wrote, "Stop the Steel's propensity to attract white supremacists, militia members, and others who actively promote violence may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike." So now, the extreme right, and it's funny because all you hear about on right-wing media is how dangerous Antifa is. Oh, Antifa, dangerous, dangerous. Oh, the cops are in trouble. The black people are shooting cops. Oh, my God. You know the people that are the most dangerous to the police? Sovereign citizens. Far-right, anti-government people. They kill police. They kill law enforcement. Bundy Ranch guys will aim weapons at federal agents and officers and take over bird sanctuaries or whatever they took over. But no, oh no, it's Antifa. Oh, it's the left. That's the real problem. Oh my God. We got to stop the left. The left is the problem. Now, leadership, by the way, decided not to use the National Guard on January 6th. And they were instructed, the leadership had instructed the agency's civil disturbance unit to hold back on using their more potent crowd control measures. These are just things like stun guns, basically. Now, do you think they would have done that during a BLM protest? No. In fact, in many instances, police actually reportedly escalated violence in concordance with right-wing counter-protesters at the BLM rallies. And again, we know this by another analysis. In fact, of the over 7,300 documented Black Lives Matter events, only about 1% of police officers were injured, reportedly. At about 5% of those events, there were arrests made. Tear gas was deployed in 2.5% of the events. Overall, though, over 96.3% of events involved no property damage and no police injuries at all. And in 97.7% of events, no injuries were reported among participants, bystanders, or police. Overwhelmingly peaceful BLM protests were. But no, you look at the right wing, you listen to Fox News, entire cities were burning. Oh my God, they're burnt down. Oh my God. The entire city's gone. It's just gone. No, not at all. Not at all. Wrong. And by the way, there was a death of an officer in California, right? So now this was during the Black Lives Matter protest. The kicker is, it wasn't the BLM protesters that shot and killed that officer. No. It was a Boogaloo boy. Boogaloo boy. Yeah. So but we should totally ally with the Boogaloo boys. Yes, because they know what they're doing. Oh yeah, no, it's totally ally with them because they're anti-establishment. Weird. It's almost as if it's the far right that's violent and not the left. And it's almost as if police tend to treat right-wing protesters with a very soft hand, the softest hands. But when it comes to the left, maximum force. I wonder who they're afraid of, and I wonder who they're working with. Weird, weird. And yet, because they decided to, you know, fight back a little bit against a right-wing mob that ended up running roughshod over them. You know, and here's the thing too. Dinesh D'Souza is calling the mob the victims. Oh, no, they're the victims. And the police, this time, who were, again, had that very soft hand in orders to stay back and not even deploy their, you know, crowd control weapons. Oh, well, no, they're the aggressors. It was the police that were the aggressors in this case. Police brutality against right-wingers. Seriously. Look, I think we need major police reform. I think we need to defund the police. Like the NYPD, for example. Now, I know that's not a popular opinion, but that's my opinion. I think we need to defund places like the NYPD. They have a budget that's bigger than the entire GDP of some countries, small countries, and they're super over-militarized. Thanks, of course, to the right wing. Now, again, under Trump, and this had briefly stopped under Obama, kind of, but then Trump, Jeff Sessions brought it back. But there was a program here, or is a program, that would basically give surplus military equipment to police. So we're talking arms, we're talking vehicles, we're talking vests, we're talking all this military equipment that was used on the streets of Afghanistan that went to your local police department. And of course, in order to continue getting those goodies, well, they got to use them, right? They got to justify the use of those things. And guess where they ended up? They ended up in the streets of Ferguson. They ended up in the streets of Baltimore. They didn't end up on Wall Street. They didn't end up in any gated neighborhoods. No, they ended up in the cities where people who have been crushed were starting to protest, peacefully, mind you. And so, look, now, to be fair, the Capitol Police did not have that equipment. In fact, what I was reading in the research of this story is that a lot of their stuff happened to have been outdated. Outdated shields, you know, tear gas guns, which, by the way, they shouldn't use tear gas anyway because it's considered a chemical weapon. Nonetheless, they couldn't even fire that because they didn't want to because it's over 10 years old. And so, look, they didn't have that equipment. But as I pointed out, Ferguson and Baltimore, they had all the new equipment. Guess why? Guess why? I'll give you one guess. One chance to really unwrap that mystery. That said, D'Souza, even though he sounds like it, I don't think the guy's an idiot. No, I think he knows exactly what he's doing, what line he is walking. Because again, he's trying to be like, oh, you know, no, I'm pro-police. We need police and we value you. But police, government, very heavy-handed, not good. And it's all distraction and Democrats, this, blah, blah, blah. He knows exactly what he's doing. Because there's no logical consistency among the right wing anymore. And Dinesh D'Souza is a classic right-wing grifter, saying whatever he needs to say in order to appease the insane right wing, in which, of course, facts do not matter to them. And he does it, of course, so he can sell a few more of his pretty shitty movies. That's who this guy is.